Happy Wednesday, all. It's the third episode of the Left Fresh podcast. Thank you all for jumping on. I would ask you all as you come in to subscribe, like, comment, um, share as well. Tell a friend. Thank you all for jumping back on with us. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope everyone enjoyed the games that we're about to talk about. It was an interesting divisional game weekend, and got a lot to talk about, a lot to cover, a lot of things going on out here. It was a great weekend and a couple of events throughout the week. So after this proverbial hump in the week, great time to catch up to see where we're at on the Left Fresh podcast. Like I said, just a friendly reminder to please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Thank you all for jumping on. I appreciate you again. And let's get right to it. Let's not delay. We get into the divisional round. Here we had the scores. As you can see, the Saturday games, the Denver Broncos outlasted the Buffalo Bills in a very close overtime thriller, 33-30. Controversial calls or no calls were made. Big interception by Denver at the end. Josh Allen had a pretty, put a valiant effort up, but he struggled with some turnovers. Um, Managed to score a lot of points against Denver, but yeah, I think those turnovers came back to bite him. Uh, as we can also come back to the actual outcome with former Bills coach Sean McDermott. I think I said going into the weekend that, you know, this was kind of a game that would probably determine whether Sean McDermott is the coach or not. And I mean, safe to say I was right about that. But yeah, I mean, thrilling game. Unfortunately, Bo Nix had a catastrophic injury, out for the rest of the playoffs. Jarrett Stidham is his replacement. Uh, yeah, that's pretty rough. I mean, going into the AFC Championship game with your backup quarterback, that could be rough on anyone. Um, but Denver still has a top notch defense. Um, can Jarrett Stidham manage the game, not wreck the bends, or can he actually get the ball down the field, make some plays as a backup? I mean, can he pull a Nick Foles? One could find out. But going against the New England Patriots team, who also won this weekend, this is going to be they're going to have the work cut out for them without Bo Nix. But yeah, that was Saturday's game. A lot of controversy from that. We're going to revisit it. The other Saturday game was not much controversy at all. The Seattle Seahawks pretty much steamrolled the San Francisco 49ers, 41-6. I mean, I kind of said that the coach Kyle Shanahan is not going to come back from a lead. Um, he's known for collapsing leads, not coming back from them. And San Francisco was just outmatched. I mean, they were just completely outmatched. Seattle looks like a whole different. Yeah, Seattle looks like they're on pace to be the 2013 Seahawks. With the Legion of Boom and everything like that. They just like they're clicking on all cylinders. The young parts are playing well. It's going to be a big test for them as well. Playing the third matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, big rivalry game. A lot of people had the Rams already as a Super Bowl favorite. Seattle kind of shocks some people. That's kind of the theme of this postseason. But yeah, Seattle, big impressive win. Big impressive win. I mean, I know San Francisco was pretty beat up, but nevertheless, I mean that's definitely a big win for them. And I mean, all to the next round, they look like the strongest team left in the playoffs. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they win it all. And then you have Sunday slate of games, the results. You had the Texans going to Gillette Stadium to play the Patriots. And, the Texas defense did everything they could. But unfortunately, CJ Stroud had a playoff game to forget. Um, 4 interceptions. I think like three or four, three of them all. I think maybe three or all of them in the first half. I mean, he was just really not having one of his best games at the most inopportune time. I mean, usually with a defense like that, it's just like, you just don't want to wreck the bed. You don't want to just lose. You don't want to be the one that loses the game. And I mean, it's safe to say that, well, he pretty much lost them the game. I mean, the defense did what they could. I mean, I know the Patriots eventually scored, but 28 points, but that, CJ Stroud's turnovers, they put him in good position. So left him in a bad spot. And the Patriots won convincingly. I was impressed with Drake May. Um, he made the right decisions. He didn't do too much. He struggled a little bit, but I mean, he didn't do too much. He didn't lose them the game. And that's ultimately what CJ Stroud did. I mean, you got some of the top defenses in the NFL playing in these playoffs. And I mean, it's pretty much going to come down to the quarterback play. Yeah, it's like the defense read him so well, there's nothing he can do. And I mean, CJ Stroud had a lot working against him. I mean, the offensive line issues, the receiver injuries. I mean, we can do that all day with CJ Stroud, but it's more or less the decision making that he made. I think he's just trying to force, too many. He's trying to force too many passes and try to make too many things happen. I think it's just a little too much hero ball. And I mean, you're working with limited resource. We're working with limited weapons and limited line. You have to kind of manage the game a little better. And you know, they just had CJ just pretty much figured out. So yeah, but yeah, that was a big win for the Patriots, ugly loss for the Texans. And I mean, something to consider too that CJ Stroud is going to be up for an extension as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, how much they consider extending CJ, how much they're going to offer him, or if they're just going to let him go through his fifth year and just deal with it later. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. I mean, I know they got a lot of parts to bring back, so I don't think they're going to make too many rash moves, any rash decisions. But that Patriots game was, great on both sides of the ball. They were just better on both sides of the ball. The defense was great against C.J. Stroud. The offense, they struggled a little bit against the defense, but I mean, the defense couldn't hold so long after C.J. was throwing interceptions all over the place. So, big win for the Patriots. They move on to face the Broncos. Um, the Rams and the Bears. This was another interesting game right here. Caleb Williams just, win, lose, or draw, you could see something, man. You could see elite arm talent with him. Like, he's placing the ball. He's gotten a lot better throughout the course of the season. He's not just he was missing easy ones at some point, and he still kind of misses the easy ones. But you're starting to see what exactly made him a number one pick. The ball placement on his passes. I mean, throwing in that Chicago win like that. I mean, it's already did it against Green Bay, but that last touchdown on the run, under duress, just chucks it towards the end zone, and Komet just breaks away, makes that catch. I mean, to tie the game, that was a great one. But then it just kind of undoes itself when Caleb throws a costly interception. I mean, a deep pass that was unnecessary. You could have just gotten the field goal range, possibly won the game. But that's a young quarterback. That's kind of the kinks that they were trying to work out with Caleb as far as you know not doing anything hero ball. Yeah, it was a tough. It was just really just a tough interception to throw at that point. Yeah, it was a tough look. It was a great game. Yeah, I mean, I think the Bears are going to be around for a minute. I think Ben Johnson's a legit coach. I think the coach has been set in Chicago. I think the Bears look like a legit team. I mean, the NFC North is a pretty competitive division, but the steps that the Chicago Bears took forward, and I mean, like I said, when you got the coach and the quarterback right, that's kind of a scary thought for the rest of the league. I mean, it's like you got an offensive mind like Ben Johnson, and if Caleb continues to progress, then the Bears are going to be around for a while. You know what I mean? They're going to be a tough team to look at. They're going to be a tough team to face. So yeah, definitely great game. And then, like I said, after the divisional games is out the way, we get to the nitty gritty, the actual conference championship game. This is like I said, this is going to be a tall order for the Broncos because you have a backup quarterback, and nothing against Jarrett Stidham or anything like that, but I mean that's kind of like one of the worst times to come into a championship game is without your starting quarterback. So I mean, how they perform without Bo Nix is going to be a tall order against this Patriots team. I know a lot of people are kind of sleeping on the Patriots because of the schedule, or they didn't face any of the elite teams or whatnot. But I mean, I honestly think that the Patriots are good on both sides of the ball, pretty balanced, well coached. Um, but they got a tough task against their defense. I mean, it's just a matter of how much offense can Denver generate. Can you generate without the run game? They beat Buffalo with literally no run game last Saturday. So playing against his Patriots with no run game, and Jarrett Stidham is not going to do Jarrett Stidham any favors. So I mean, I got the Patriots winning this. I mean, the path the Patriots faced to get here was through some elite defenses, but some sputtering offenses. And I think the Patriots could just you know, I don't think the Patriots have to score a lot of points because I don't see Denver scoring a lot of points. So unfortunately, I think injuries just bit Denver at the worst time, at the worst possible time. And the most interesting NFC Championship game, Part 3, the Rams and the Seahawks. What I think the score will be? Yeah, I got the Patriots winning, probably about 20-14. Uh, if Denver could score 2 touchdowns, I'd be impressed. I think that. Yeah, I think that would be very impressive if Denver could at least score 2 touchdowns, but I don't see that happening. I mean, if they could score 2 touchdowns, that'd be a great for them. But I think it's just a tough break for them after having a great season, great defense. Yeah, they just have to kind of build back for next year. Bo Nix hopefully have a speedy recovery and everything like that, and they can just retool. But I think it'll be, I definitely see the Patriots winning 20-14. Rams and Seahawks. This is part 3. This is a very interesting. This has been a very interesting installation of. First of all, you always love when the division rivals in a conference championship. You know what I mean? It's like everybody knows each other. There's no secrets. They're just going to play hard. This is probably going to be a dog fight. Um, I think Matt Stafford and Sam Darnold is going to come down to who makes the least amount of mistakes. And a lot of people had the Rams winning the Super Bowl, going to the Super Bowl coming into this season. So they're probably the least likely to surprise. They are probably the least likely surprise team in this at this point. The Seattle Seahawks have surprised everybody. And honestly, my heart is telling me like, hey, Matt Stafford could pull it out, but I think Seattle has hit this part of the machine that's like too hard to touch. I mean, I think that defense has really rallied around Sam Darnold. I don't think Darnold is always under trial, right? Can he win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold? The question is, how much do you rely on Sam Darnold? And if Seattle's defense and the running game and the special teams, like they went off against San Francisco, if they are clicking on all cylinders, it's going to be tough for the Rams to stop them, especially in that secondary. Um, I honestly don't want to touch this game. Honestly, I don't want to touch this game with a prediction. I mean, I can honestly say that like the Rams are probably the veteran team that everybody goes with, but I'm gonna go with Seattle. Seattle at home, best defense in football, best total defense. I think that they kind of built up a little confidence from playing the Rams twice, and having that home game is probably going to be what gets them to the Super Bowl. Yeah, Rams. Yeah, and that's the thing. The Rams can get to Sam Darnold, and they can force pressure on him and everything. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Stafford is definitely the better quarterback. And that's the thing. Can Seattle's defense, can Seattle's other facets of their game, can the running game, can the special teams, can somebody else, take some of that pressure off of Sam Darnold? Because Sam Darnold's not going to win a shootout with Matt Stafford. I mean, even though Matt Stafford's a gunslinger as well, but I think Seattle's defense is like a little more disciplined, has gotten better as the season went on, and you know, I think the Rams' weapons are still good. That's why I say I still think like the Rams could. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams pull it out, but going into Seattle at home against that defense, I think Seattle's probably good for this one game. Yeah, definitely interesting. Going to be some interesting games, but um, after the games that finished up, so what we have here is after the a lot of the coaching carousel continue to spin as well in the midst of all these great games. Hopefully everybody. First of all, if you're just jumping in, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, share, tell a friend, to tell a friend. Thank you all for jumping on. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoys the games this weekend. It's going to be some good ones. I think it's going to be pivotal. We're getting closer to the Super Bowl, which means, unfortunately, probably going to be no NFL season, but there's going to be plenty of talk to go around. And the talk hasn't stopped, even though the season's still going. Coaching carousel continues to spin. You see a couple of coaching changes. Like I said, I mentioned before, Coach Sean McDermott got fired by the Buffalo Bills. Um, a lot of controversy regarding that because, like I said, I knew that it was going to be a breaking point, to be a ceiling with McDermott. But there's been a backlash that maybe the general manager should have been gone with him. And these comments that the owner, Terry Bagula, had made regarding Keon Coleman and drafting him, where I think he's trying to defend, the general manager from, criticism for making that choice. But I'm gonna let you hear the clip yourself and decide decide from there.
Obviously, with the Keon Coleman signing, which hasn't worked out, how do you answer the fact that you have not given Josh a good enough wide receiver room?
Yeah, I mean,
Can I interrupt? I'll address the Keon situation. The coaching staff pushed to draft Keon. I'm not saying Brandon wouldn't have drafted him, but he wasn't his next choice. That was Brandon being a team player and taking advice of his coaching staff, who felt strongly about the player. And, he he's taken, for some reason, heat over it and not saying a word about it, but I'm here to tell you the true story.
Obviously, with the Keon Coleman signing.
Yeah, so you basically hear the owner basically defending the choice of drafting Keon Coleman, who in their eyes hasn't worked out well for being a good weapon to Josh Allen. That they're putting it off on the coaching staff for making that choice, and the GM was just being a good team player. That sounds a lot like covering up for the GM as to why you kept him and got rid of Sean McDermott. Also, kind of reflects a shaky atmosphere in Buffalo. I mean, you think about it as this should be one of the best vacancies in the NFL, right? It should be one of the best coaching vacancies. You got Josh Allen, you got a quarterback. I mean, every coach that's looking for a new vacancy or looking to be a new hire, they got, they don't really have a quarterback. Who has an elite quarterback to come to? I mean, just like in Baltimore, these are two teams looking for a coach that already have a quarterback in play. But if you're a prospective coach and you hear the owner and the GM sitting there letting the owner throw the coaching under the bus for drafting a player, which is still the GM's job. Like the GM can override that. You know what I mean? That's kind of that puts a bad taste in a potential coach's mouth. Like, hey, first off, I'm gonna come in here. First of all, I'm gonna come in here with exponential expectations, right? Because as the new coach, you got to come into Buffalo, and your goal is a Super Bowl, right? You got to get Josh Allen to a Super Bowl. So that pressure is already there. And then if it doesn't work out, what is the GM going to do? What is the owner going to do? Are they going to just sit back and say, "Oh, that was their choice"? That's kind of, like I said, I still see a coach possibly signing up for that because it's Josh Allen there, but the organization that kind of just shines a bad light on the organization. Like that could also, one people contribute that to lack of development. This is a second year receiver, and if McDermott is gone, like I said, this is basically damage control for a GM that everybody put under scrutiny, saying that he should be gone just as much as the coach should be gone. So that was just a really bad cover up. On top of the fact that he was still complaining about, the interception, the catch. It was a catch, not an interception, and everything like that. Listen, that's kind of like, I mean, I understand the sour grapes from, just happened and everything like that. You still in the emotion of the game and everything, but at the same time, as a new coach, you're like, yeah, you got Josh Allen, but you're coming in with exponential expectations, and you're probably coming in with unreasonable logic if something doesn't go right. It's never their fault. So, that's kind of tough. That's kind of a tough situation for Buffalo right there after moving on from Sean McDermott. Also, Atlanta Falcons have since we last been on the show have hired Coach Kevin Stefanski from the Cleveland Browns. A lot of mixed emotions about that. I think a lot of people are on the fence about whether Stefanski was a good hire or not. Two-time Coach of the Year, however, being fired from Cleveland after an awful season and a lot of scrutiny for how he handled Shedeur Sanders has kind of left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. So him coming to Atlanta is like a lot of people are like, oh boy. But I'll say this: Atlanta's another attractive coaching vacancy that was filled. You got parts in place. You got an offense. You got a team that can honestly compete for that division. Um, if Stefanski can get some sort of offense going in Atlanta to go with that defense, they could actually challenge for the division. So yeah, unshackled said a lot of team owners are tired of playoffs and high salaries and non-playoff teams making more money off advertising and merchandise. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of investment being made out here. And teams want results, and there's a standard in place. Some teams' standards are different. Some teams' trajectories are different than the other. You might, like I said, you might get hired to a team that's expected to make the playoffs. You might get hired to a team that's expected to be a rebuild. It's case by case. I think in the Falcons' case, they just feel like a good coach can get them over the top. You know, and Stefanski was actually listed as the second best coaching hire. Later would be all black, everything. Yeah, I mean, like I said, Matt Ryan stepped into place, and I seen a lot of clever about Matt Ryan, but then once he hired Stefanski, it was like, oh boy. But it's like, you're stuck with Kirk Cousins. You have a defense that's looking like it's going to turn the corner to be pretty good, and you have BJ. So you still got a good team in place. I don't think the coach. I think Stefanski, whether he's an upgrade from Raheem Morris, he's two-time coach of the year. And I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, that was so many years ago," but it's like, yeah, he was in Cleveland. One of the things he was kind of resentful for is Deshaun Watson's contract. And I know he's going to Atlanta with, I know he's going to Atlanta with another contract that they're stuck with. But Kirk Cousins is a quarterback that Stefanski actually likes. He's a drop step, two-step drop, release the ball, get rid of it. He doesn't like improvising quarterbacks. That's kind of probably why he was slow to put Shador in. Plus, he didn't want to set Shador up, to start the season with the team doing so bad. You know what I mean? But Cousins isn't the starter. He's probably going to be the starter until Michael Penix recovers. He tore his ACL, man. I don't know what the recovery process for him. And Kirk Cousins is still on the contract as well, so they definitely gonna still hang. They still gonna put him. They still gonna roll with him. And you still got Stefanski out there. I mean, like I said, I think Stefanski would like a Kirk Cousins style quarterback, even though that's a lot of money for him. But I mean, the passing style thing, he doesn't really like a lot of improv passing. So, Kirk Cousins is going to, yeah, Keon Coleman. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying about Keon Coleman is that, we don't know if, if the system was failing him, if Buffalo was the problem. But it's like, calling them out like that, just picking them out just to save the owner, just to save the GM, and that was kind of foul. But yeah, I think the Falcons have a chance to compete in that division. I mean, you didn't have to win, you didn't have to be 500 to win the division. So, like I said, I speculated that Kevin Stefanski was going to get hired. It was confirmed, and I think, you didn't get Tomlin is out here. I mean, I don't know too many other coaches that the Falcons could have been interested in. I mean, Stefanski was listed as the second best coaching candidate out there. And the Giants got Harbaugh, so there's that. But speaking of the Giants, I like what Harbaugh's doing. Harbaugh's gonna try to use a lot of analytics and everything like that. But it's gonna be a lot of players coming back, good system coming in. A lot of good vacancies still out there. A lot of rebuilding vacancies out there as well. You got Buffalo still out there. You got the Steelers still out there. You got the Ravens still out there. I heard the Ravens I feel the Steelers, I'm sorry, was interviewing Brian Flores. So if Brian Flores and Mike McCarthy. So I know a lot of people were kind of skeptical about that because they feel like, Mike McCarthy is not going to move the needle in Pittsburgh. But at the same time, I mean, you got to move forward from Tomlin. So like I said, these are Mike McDaniel accepted the offensive coordinator position in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Raiders position is still open. I don't know how Aaron Glenn is still coaching, but the Jets position is still sold up. But it's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the coaching carousel right now. Still going to be more news. Still going to be more, developments. Still going to be. I would have taken Kevin O'Shea for the little shot. Oh man, yeah. I mean, listen, Raheem. I think Raheem was a good defensive coordinator for the Rams, and I think overall time management wasn't his thing. Clock management was not his thing, and that was proven. Um, We'll see if Stefanski does. See if Stefanski does situationals a little bit better. See if he draws up better schemes offensively or gets a better offensive coordinator in there. So, I mean, but I think that news had a lot of Atlanta Falcons fans kind of like a mixed reaction. Some people like it's a good hire, it's a horrible hire. It's back and forth. So I mean, let me know what y'all think about that hire. I mean, you know, it's a good thing, I guess, because Raheem Morris had different expectations. People say, "Oh, he had the same record as Raheem Morris." He had different expectations. One team was expecting to win the division, the other team stuck trying to get rid of Deshaun Watson and rebuild. So I mean, I'm not going to just say it's a bad hire. I'm not going to say it's really a great hire either. It's kind of like the best hire you can make. There's not a lot of options out here. You know what I mean? It's a bunch of other coaches that got fired. So I mean, by the logic, oh well, you got fired. This every other coach out here got fired. Who else you going to go? You got to find what fits for you. You got to give them a fresh start. Miami still looking for a coach. Another good coaching vacancy. So this is where I think a lot of coordinators are going to start filling those positions too, especially those rebuilding teams like Arizona and the Raiders. Kyler Murray's still on the Cardinals, still trying to figure out where he's going to get traded. Tua still in Miami, still trying to figure out where he's going to get traded. There's a lot of different parts. There's about to be a quarterback carousel along with the coaching carousel. So yeah, the offseason, as we get towards the Super Bowl and the end of the season, that's when the offseason really is going to start cooking. So yeah, it's definitely starting to gear up already. I mean, this cycle already has already kind of taken off kind of crazy. I wonder how Falcons fans will act if he starts winning. Probably be hush mouth. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Falcons start 6-0, 7-0, and everything like that. It's probably going to be a lot of people quiet because I mean, but at the same time, it's also amazing to see. It's also going to see what the rest of the division holds. I mean, if Tampa Bay can retool, I don't know if Tampa Bay is retooling or if their window's officially closed. The Saints, I don't know if there's another year of rebuild in them. Carolina, I don't know if they're going to take a step forward or take a step back. So yeah, it's going to be real interesting in that division. I really, I really thought the Falcons had to make a move for a coach, and they made their move, and this was as good as it get out there. So yeah, obviously winning cures everything. Couldn't agree with that. Couldn't agree more myself. Yeah. I mean, listen, all that goes out the window. All the chatter in the media and everything that flies out the window if the Falcons start with it. So I mean, like I said, they got the parts. You got the weapons. You got a pretty decent line. You don't have the best line, but you got a decent line. You got a defense that's getting better. So yeah, not a bad hire. I don't think it was a bad hire. It was a hire you kind of had to make. I mean, like I said, if there was another candidate out there, let me know. But I don't think that was an awful hire. I think it was just the hire you were stuck making. You already fired your coach before Black Monday. So. But that's it for the NFL side of things. Hope you enjoyed the slate of games this weekend. These conference championship games. Keep my ear to the street, see what's going on around the rumor mill. Any other big news that comes up, I'll be ready to talk about that next week as well. You know what I'm saying? The NFL's, like I said, wrapping up, but also starting the off season starting to cook as well. The carousel starting to spin as well. So that covers those stops. But like I said, quick reminder: subscribe, like, comment. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Appreciate you all for jumping on with me. Yeah, we're gonna just go ahead now and switch gears into the NBA because this is the time where the league starts picking up, and we're getting close to the trade deadline, All-Star break, and everything starts to hit the fan in the NBA around this time. And speaking of All-Stars, before I show everybody the standings, let me show everybody who were voted the All-Star starters. If you don't know the new format of the NBA, they have 2 American teams, 1 international team. Team A plays the international team. Team B plays the international team. The winner plays, the winner plays, then the loser plays. It's like a round robin where the best record wins. And it's basically going to be like a 12-minute game, which is basically, in essence, a quarter. That fourth quarter being that championship of the best record team. So, but here's the starters that was voted. Not too much controversy outside of one pick. You see Giannis has been voted, Kay Cunningham, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Jaylen Brown. That's pretty much evident. And then you see possibly the top four players in the league: Luka, Jokic, Wemby, SGA. And then you see Steph Curry, 38 years old, still going, still got the top selling jersey in the NBA. The NBA needs to try to find a new face to sell his product or a couple faces. It's probably need to start investing in the college market and stuff to get some faces invested in because 38 years old, still carrying the league as far as jersey sales is kind of a bad sign that, a lot of the casual fans don't know the young players. But yeah, Steph, uh, a lot of people debating that Ant-Man should have been starting over Steph. But I mean that's what the fans voted. And like I said, voted for the guy with the top jersey sales. So that's pretty much the basis of all-star starters right there. How you feel about Bron not being a starter? Show out. Yeah, man. I think this season Bron got off. I mean, he's been playing well later into the season, but when he got back from the injury, kind of getting off the blocks pretty slow. To be like, um, I think it's kind of justified. I mean, I don't think he necessarily has to be a starter at this point in his career. I mean, he can still probably make the game as a reserve. Uh, as far as starters go, I mean, it's tough because there's so much talent in the league. And like I said, the way this format is going to structure up is like, you can say Ant-Man's a snub, but he'll probably be on a team of 8. It's going to do like teams of 8, and they're going to play like, the first 2 games. Wait a minute. The Sciatic nerve messed up his votes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, injuries happen, man. I mean, there's been some devastating injuries, too. I mean, Joker got voted despite being injured. And that's why I don't really put too much stock into the starters because, they're pretty much fan base voting. Once the reserves get announced, then I can start talking about who's going to be snubbed and everything like that. Well, I want to see how this international team is going to be built up because I know for a fact, of course, Jokic, Giannis, Luka, Wemby, and SGA can make the international team, but who will be the 3 reserves for them? And then the 2 American teams, A and B, how those teams are going to be split up as well. So it's going to be crazy to see what type of format they experiment with to try to get some more engagement. But to me, all of those different changes go for naught if there's no effort on the floor. Okay, you can make the format all you want to. You can't format effort. You know, if you're gonna go out there and just jack up a bunch of threes, do a couple of fancy dribble passes, and then have a 3-point shootout at the line, I mean, people are not gonna watch it. And that format is just gonna frustrate people even more. So I mean, I don't know what type of incentive you have to get more effort out of them, but that's pretty much the key. But those are your all-star starters. We're gonna get to the standings because we're getting close to the trade deadline. And now we need to see what teams probably need to make a move. You see the Pistons at the top, 31-10. I think they're pretty much good. I think the Celtics are just waiting for Jason Tatum to get back. I think the Raptors are in a good spot. Notice I skipped over my Knicks because there's been a little talk, a little chatter. I don't know if it's an official shopping going on, but there's been talks about Karl Anthony Towns, seeing where they can move him, especially while the Knicks are on this skid where they're losing like 9 of 11 games. You know, like Jalen Brunson had a team meeting. Yeah, just probably talk about the effort or the defensive aspect of it. It's like, at this point, you really got to look at whether the Knicks are at their ceiling. And like I said, the biggest piece is probably the most expensive piece. So obviously, you're talking about moving Cat. And honestly, who's going to trade for him? That's the biggest catch that I see with all these trade rumors is that who's going to trade for these contracts? A lot of these teams, especially teams that are winning, they're not trying to take on an unnecessary contract, especially if you're going to cost them depth. Teams rather have depth than an actual star. The star is just like that's too much reliance. You know what I mean? Too much reliance on one salary. So, as you look around now, it's like, Cat's making 53, 54 million a year. You got to ask yourself. Yeah, buy Cat, get Evan Mobley from the Sun for the Cavs. Yeah, listen, whatever we got as far as Eddie, because if I'm the Cavs, I'm not giving up a defensive player of the year for Cat without something else with it. I mean, whatever it takes, if we can get Evan Mobley, yeah, I would definitely take Evan Mobley over Cat. He can stretch the floor and he can protect the rim a lot better. So yeah, um, it's a big. I knew it was going to come to a head eventually because Cat's contract is just too large for his play. I remember when we traded for him from Minnesota. Minnesota already gave him the super max. And I'm like, if Minnesota's giving up a guy they gave a super max to, why do you want him? So that's kind of a tough spot. And, the Knicks kind of made a little run. Made a run last year, and it's like kind of fell short. But I think that's kind of going to be the case as long as you have Cat, and it's a matter of what the Knicks can tweak to get better. And we could definitely use the cap space by moving Cap, but there's only so many teams that have the cap space to allocate it. That's why the Hawks got rid of Trey Young for nothing because you know they could take on that cap space. That's what today's collective bargaining agreement is doing. It's now forcing teams to get rid of their stars, and not only get rid of them to the start, get rid of their stars. You can't even trade them to a contender. So you got to trade them to a bottom of the barrel team. You got to trade them to a lottery team. Somebody that just got cap space to take on this salary. And the ideal thing is you get a boatload of draft picks for them. But teams see, hey, you're not about to sign them. Why would I give you draft picks for them? We can leave you there. We can leave them there to suffer with. So yeah, you see the Wizards at the bottom. Trey still not playing. The Pacers without Halliburton are still at the bottom. I think the Nets are shopping Michael Porter Jr. around. I heard different packages about him going to Golden State. I don't really see that happening, especially now. I've heard Trey talk about LaMelo Ball. Here we are with the Bucks. What is the news with Giannis? Is Giannis going to be moved at the end of the season? I don't think he's going to be moved out of deadline, but he's definitely, last time we checked in, he was a little frustrated in Milwaukee. I don't think Milwaukee can put anything around him. They still got Damian Lillard's contract on the books. They have no real draft capital. They have absolutely, positively no way to get better around Giannis. Added Evan Turner. I mean, not Evan Turner, Miles Turner is not, has not yielded profitable for them. Kind of like adding Brook Lopez with a little more athleticism. It didn't really change much for Milwaukee's situation. Do you think the lack of a clear face in the league is tied to the fact that many of the league's top players aren't American? That's a good aspect to it. I'm gonna add another layer to it. When was the last time? And you see Cooper Flag. I'm saying Cooper Flag just came out from Duke, but there has to be an investment in players on the NCAA level. We're talking about American players. The casual fan has to see these guys in a big tournament. They have to see these guys on a big screen before they get to the NBA. Otherwise, they look on draft day, you don't even know who these guys are. You look back on the last 2 or 3 drafts, most people struggle to know who these guys are. They're usually one and dones, especially if they didn't go to a blue blood school. A lot of people didn't know a lot of people did not know who Cade Cunningham was because he went to Oklahoma State. So, I think the NBA has to kind of get to kind of more partnership with the NCAA in promoting young talent, young stars. That way, when they come across that NBA draft floor, people already have an idea who they are and they already follow them around the league. Otherwise, everybody's still hanging on to old names. I feel like in basketball, we're still holding on to a lot of veteran names, still tossing a lot of veteran. I seen Anthony Davis trade packages being talked about on different sites and everything. I'm like, I don't think Anthony Davis should have any real market for him at this point. I mean, I hate to say it, he's a great player, legendary player, Hall of Fame player, but at this point, with his contract and those injuries, selling me on the idea that Anthony Davis has trade value is just, it should be laughable. But yeah, that's the East right there. Now let's go to the West. See, now you see OKC still at the top. You see the Spurs. Yeah, they lost a close one to the Rockets. They starting to not come down to earth, but I think teams are starting to work around Wemby a little bit. The Nuggets look really good without joking. Peyton Watson looked like he's having a breakout season. Really impressed with him. Notice these teams at the top, they're going younger. Houston, young core. You got Kevin Durant up there, but he's got a young core around. A lot of these teams that are going younger are doing a lot better. The Suns are still doing surprisingly good, even after trading Kevin Durant. Ant-Man is still doing great. Yeah, Unshackle said AD spent more time in street clothes. That's almost his nickname, man. I don't want to, put that nickname on him like that, but that's the name that's going around. Especially at this age, he's played so long. He's got so much mileage on him, and at this point, it's like I said, trading for him at this point almost seems illogical. He's barely played any of the games for Dallas after the trade, so it'd be interesting to see what team takes on that experiment. And then you see the West is pretty much more defined. The Clippers is still kind of get hot a little bit, but they're still in that play-in spot. Um, I guess they stuck with Kawhi and James Harden. So I mean, it's just seeing how far they can go with it. Retirement should be in AD's near future. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad a little bit because it's like it's almost one thing after the other. When it comes to him and Joel Embiid and everything like that, those guys, they're very talented. It's just that they just can't seem to catch a break, and that's unfortunate. But yeah, and then you have the Warriors. The Warriors right there in the eighth spot. They're in the midst of some drama right now. You know, as you see that talk about trades and everything like that. Jonathan Kuminga has been demanding a trade. Yeah, Shackly, yeah. Spurs been dropping a lot of games after having double-digit leads. Yeah. I mean, like I said, they're still a young team. I think the Spurs are great. I think they're ready for prime time, but they're still a young team. They still have, they got Wimby. Castle's only in the second year. Dylan Harper's still a rookie. De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes are really like the only veterans. So, yeah, closing games. That's going to be interesting to see them in the playoffs. Can they close a series? Can they, do they have that type of tenacity to close a team out in 4 games? And that's the thing about these young, inexperienced teams when they start rising up, surging up the standards like that. You see the Mavericks and the Grizzlies, Clippers, Kings, all these teams at the bottom. I mean, like you can see everybody kind of gearing up for a trade. The thing is, you don't see a trade because they have players that nobody wants to trade for. When you get to the Grizzlies, you see John Morant. There's not a big market for John Morant. Unfortunately, he's already got caught audio arguing with teammates and everything like that. Memphis wants to get rid of him so bad that it seems like we'll offer you pennies for him because it's like we know that you don't want it. We know that you want it. We know that you want him out of there. You know what I mean? So what are we doing here? Yeah, Jimmy Bucket's hurt. I don't know what's gonna happen. Going to stay. Yeah, I told people I was like, that extension for Jimmy Butler was ultimately a big roll of the dice to try to get Golden State over the top. It still didn't address the need that Golden State had. Golden State needs a big. I was talking about Michael Porter Jr. when I was showing the Eastern Conference standings. I heard Golden State trying to make a move for him. I'm like, that's still not. I mean, you got a shooter, but it doesn't give you the fix that you need. You need a rim protector. You need a big man. Draymond can't play center for him. And speaking of which, like I said, here it is. I have the audio from Mike Dunleavy speaking on Jonathan Kuminga's trade request. And a lot of people had a lot of controversy about it because a lot of people felt like, he does, it felt a little insulting for Jonathan Kuminga. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip and I'll let you all weigh in on it.
In terms of demand, when you look at demand, there needs to be demand on the market. So we'll see where that unfolds. But heard always with these guys, I tell them I'm willing to work with them. Want to help people out, whether that's JK or any player on a roster. So we're good with, that's his wishes, trying to figure that out, but we got to do what's best for our organization, and that's what we'll do. And as far as it goes with the deadline coming up, I think we'll take the next couple of weeks to assess this team a little bit more. I felt pretty good with where we're at heading into last night's game in terms of what we need to do. I thought our team was playing really well, heading in the right direction. Obviously, things have changed, so I want to take a couple of weeks here to watch these games and see our team and what we can do better. Demand.
So that to me sounds like evacuate the plan. Whatever plan we had, scrap it. Okay, Jimmy Butler's hurt. Our whole plan just fell out the window right there. That's basically what that tells me. Because now you're addressing Jonathan Kuminga, who, let's be honest, you've been shopping Kuminga around for about a year and a half. Okay, you didn't have to make a comment about the progress of the trade. You signed him as an unrestricted free agent. You extended him. So, saying there's no market for him is kind of false. The bottom line is you can't get enough for Jonathan Kuminga. Nobody's offering you the house for Jonathan Kuminga. You're over the cap. You're middle of the pack. And you're denying the inevitable that you won't be able to put a team around Steph. Now, I'm not saying trade Steph because you can't trade a dude you can't trade a player that's an all-time great that could probably go retire a Warrior, still has the top selling jersey. I don't think you could trade him. But man, you can't do nothing else. You pretty much strapped. Tax aprons, you got Draymond, you got Jimmy, you know, you're pretty much stuck. And then it's not like you're bad enough to get a lottery pick. You're kind of in the middle of the pack. This is the worst place to be almost in any sport. It's middle of the pack. You're not bad enough to get a full rebuild, and you're not contending for anything. So you're in the middle right now, just chasing your tail, trying to put something around Steph that can actually stick. But it's looking less and less likely that they're able to build around Steph before just going full rebuild and starting it over. Now I don't know when Steph's timetable on retirement, but if he still wants to play, you know, and still wants to play for a championship, I mean, winning in Silicon Valley is not looking like it's going to happen. So, I'm not saying don't trade, but I think, prepare for the twilight of his career is kind of at this point. Expectations may be too old for old man to step up. Yeah, that Golden State Warriors team all qualifies for AARP. Absolutely. Steph needs to take a pay cut if he wants to win before he retires. They got to stop being greedy when they want money or a championship. It's a fun fact. Chris Paul, when he was still president of the Players Association, negotiated for older players, like players over 34, 35, to still get max contracts. And, I think that's great that, if you're still playing at a high level, you should get your bag. But at the same time, it's hard for a team to build around. It's going to lead to a lot of reliance upon it. Okay, it's going to lead to a lot of reliance upon an old man to play at an unrealistic level to still win and get paid that type of money. And I'm not knocking people for getting paid or making the choice to get paid, but yeah, that kind of comes along with it. I mean, I know people say, "Hey, take the money; it's up to the team to find a way to build a championship around you." Golden State is not hitting on draft picks. That's the big reality. Wiseman, Jordan Poole, gone. Kuminga, probably soon to be gone. Golden State's rebuild was a mess, and that's usually what keeps sustainable success. You at least got to hit on some draft pick. You got Steph, you got Draymond, these guys getting older, and you don't have any young guy to carry the torch. At one point in time, it's sad to laugh at it right now that Jordan Poole was supposed to be that guy, but they paid him, they broke out the Brinks truck, and then they just sent him off to Washington for anybody that'll take him. You know what I'm saying? So that, it's not like Golden State hasn't tried; they just failed miserably at it. So, yeah, Golden State. At this crossroads right now, like many other teams in the middle of the standings. Only the teams at the top are pretty much just gearing up for the playoffs. Everybody else is trying to find a way to get in the mix and get out of that middle of the pack. Definitely, I agree. Yeah, Steph. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like I said, a lot of these older players are taking these max contracts, and it's like Jimmy Butler. When they signed Jimmy Butler to that big extension, I'm like, Jimmy Butler is 36 years old. And then now he tears his ACL. Like, I feel like they should have went for more depth as opposed to another star. Today's game is not trying to stack 2 or 3 stars on the team anymore. You got to have depth, and that's why nobody's traded for these stars these disgruntled stars that all these teams trying to get rid of. Nobody's traded for that. A lot of look at the Spurs. All they players came from the draft. They just got one veteran in free agency here and there. That's it. They're not making moves for some disgruntled superstar that nobody else wants. They're not making an impact for this team. Why would I trade for them? But yeah, and I say the most interesting for last because what's basketball talk without the LA Lakers? And today, an article got released by ESPN writer Baxter, and he had me laughing because it's like he went into the whole detail of the whole Buss family and sibling rivalry and how it all dissolved amongst themselves as siblings, and eventually Jeanie Buss eventually sold the team. However, there were particular details that Baxter wrote about and said, well, there were certain parts about LeBron that Jeanie turned on him about. And here's a piece of it that Shams reported right here. Apparently, according to Baxter's article, ESPN's Baxter, that is. Jeanie Buss started grumbling about LeBron's outsized ego. Felt Clutch exerted too much control. Anthony Davis and LeBron both represented by Clutch during that time there. She didn't like how LeBron was considered a savior, lack of accountability over the Westbrook trade failing. And she probably mused about not giving him a contract extension and even traded him. Felt LeBron was not grateful that the Lakers drafted Bronny and begrudgingly gave him a contract extension, fearing a bad PR hit. Now, being that the team is sold, this is pretty much old. I want to say old news, I guess. I mean, she's not there anymore. The Lakers' new management is there, but you know, I can see how that relationship dissolved based off if she had those type of thoughts. If that type of stuff was swirling around, that Lakers locker, that Lakers office organization was in disarray. And I mean, even the Luka trade couldn't really change anything ultimately. I mean, it gave us a new sign of life. It prolonged the Rob Pelinka scrutiny. You know, Rob Pelinka was dying to make a move before he traded for Luka. Before Nico Harrison called him with that deal, he was dying to find a trade, something to shake something up because LeBron and AD, it was at their ceiling together. So luckily, here he comes. And Baxter Holmes wrote a really deep article about it, you know, about the whole inside of the Buss family. So it wasn't just all LeBron bashing, but it was definitely, you know, the infighting between the family led to some really contentious arguments. And like I said, Jeanie eventually sold the company. But yeah, it turns out that she did have I don't want to say a tag, but she did have some resentment for LeBron towards the end of their run. Now I will say this. She didn't like how LeBron was considered a savior. Well, before LeBron got there, over the past 4 or 5 years before LeBron got there, the Lakers had the worst record in the league. Okay. And I know they didn't make the playoffs the first year LeBron got there, but that also led to AD coming. So, you know, one of the things LeBron did do, and whether you like him or not, he did keep the Lakers relevant. So, I mean, you know, if it comes with the expenses of everything else, I know LeBron probably everything else that comes with LeBron, okay, that's fine and understood. But guess what? You didn't have any other options. Okay. You were happy about signing him. You knew all of this track record when he got there and got you a ring. I mean, I know people don't like the bubble ring and everything like that, but it's like you didn't have any other moves. You ran off Magic Johnson. You ran off Jerry West. Okay, you ran off basketball minds that really helped shape the Lakers. And, you know, now you're sitting there blaming, you know, all about the Westbrook trade. Now, yeah, the Westbrook trade was bad. That was a bad trade. Okay, we get that. That was a bad trade. But that was more or less trying to get that third star when you were looking for depth. This new collective bargaining agreement, these tax aprons, you cannot build teams the way you used to build. Okay? Back in the day, you used to get like 3 max salaries and just live off a skeleton shift of depth. Or you get 2 max salaries and by a little depth. You get to a point in the NBA now where it's almost like you always can only have 1 super max salary and everything else. You got to hit on draft picks. You got to get younger. You know, you want to get young talent that's inexpensive or rookie deals. Okay. And if you win, you eventually got to extend them and pay them, and which can actually dissolve a roster right there. So Adam Silver is very deliberate and very meticulous in creating this structure to where the NBA can have a lot of parity and, you know, teams can't just stack up stars. And they want to give smaller market teams or lottery teams a better chance at competing as well. So, I mean, a lot of people are like, well, you know, that's unfair to spoon feed teams that run their teams badly and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, listen, teams are going to do good, teams are going to do bad, teams are going to adjust regardless. You know, I think it makes it a little interesting to see teams moving around. I mean, players moving around, stars moving around, and everything like that. Going to teams that we wouldn't expect them to go to. You know, it's not one team just collected all the stars and competing in the finals. Now you got teams that have to draft well again. You have to make smart moves. You can't just take on unnecessary salaries, and now it's too much to get rid of a salary. I mean, look at Miami. Look at all Milwaukee's doing with Dave's contract. You know, Phoenix managed to find a viable team, even though they got rid of Bradley Beal's contract. But I mean, they they had to buy him out. You see what I'm saying? So these supermax contracts are not attractive on the market, and especially if it doesn't lead to results. You got all these supermax contracts, and you're still finishing middle of the standings, middle of the pack. You know, it's time to start looking at these draft classes. Start looking at like to this year's draft class. Supposed to be really deep. You know, shout out to the Hawks fans. I got the Pelicans pick. Might have a top 5 pick in there if the lottery works in your favor. May the odds be with you. For everybody else's teams, I hope that you all make smart choices, smart trades, or if you can't make any trades, hope your teams rally together and go younger because that's the wave of the NBA right now. I mean, it doesn't look like it's changing. But what is the point of releasing this information between this reporter and Rich Paul? Who else is pissed? Who else is LeBron pissed? Yeah, see, Baxter Holmes is a writer for ESPN, and he wrote this article. It was really supposed to just be the post Jerry Buss era. So he wrote a long article about this, and LeBron was just like one of the final installments before the straw broke the camel's back. You know what I mean? And they eventually sold it to the new management. But also, what's going to be interesting is that whether to see how they move forward. You know, and number one, most importantly, could this very well be LeBron's final season, depending on how these playoffs go. You know, if the Lakers lose another first round exit, I don't rule it out. I mean, this is about as good as it gets. I've seen, yeah, like you said, organized chaos. To your point, you know, Rich was talking about maybe they should try to move, you know, Austin Reeves for Jared Jackson Jr. Well, first of all, Rich Paul, I want Jared Jackson Jr. in New York, so we got to fight for that. But nevertheless, you know, they're just everybody's struggling, trying to figure out how to get better. And the only way to do it really is to get younger. You're going to have to hit on those draft picks. So, I mean, it's very interesting. We get ready to go to All-Star break. Getting ready to see the reserves. Getting ready to see, you know, who's going to be announced for the reserves, how the team's going to be broken up. We're going to see if they're going to give us enough effort to even care. And hopefully by the trade deadline, you know, there might be some news, some groundbreaking news. And I'll be definitely interested to see how this all shapes out. But yeah, that's my time today. I'm glad you all tuned in on this fine hump day. Hope you all enjoy the games this weekend. Stay warm. If you're the Southeast region, I know it's supposed to storm pretty bad. Make sure y'all stay safe. Make sure you got all your non-perishables and all your emergency stuff just in case it goes down. And I know I ain't going nowhere. I'm looking for a reason to stay in the house. But nevertheless, definitely appreciate y'all jumping on with me. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. Definitely appreciate you all. Definitely appreciate the convo. Definitely appreciate the engagement and the interaction. I'll be back at you all next Wednesday with the sports. I'll be all over social media. You know, I'm starting to gear up for the music segment, the hip hop segment of this show as well too. So y'all can stay tuned for that. I got plenty of stuff to go. You know, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Get the sports thing rolling while it's hot and everything like that. Get everything in the algorithm. But from there, you know, the show got a whole bunch of different layers to it. Y'all got to see every last layer of it. So I definitely appreciate you all. Thank you all. Y'all have a great night. It's the Live Fresh podcast. We out. Love y'all.